to providing hosted, shared, or one-to-one OS instances and/or application delivery from Azure. So the nice thing about this is that it can be more cost effective from a per user total cost to run AVD versus the business or enterprise Windows 365 because those are dedicated always on, always up VMs. In AVD, we have some controls and tools we can do to simulate user patterns where if your users log in at 7 in the morning, we can bring the VMs up at 6 a.m. and maybe they're done at 6 p.m. and we shut them down at 7 p.m., right? And so that we're not incurring charges from that 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. window, which can help offset and potentially make AVD a cheaper solution. Again, there are more moving parts here. There is more IT involvement in configuration and maintenance. But again, in some cases, this can be a cheaper alternative than running the one-to-one Windows 365 business or enterprise solutions. Again, it has the capability of scaling both up and down based on user load as well. So you can scale up resources as they're needed. And then this does, one of the notes here is that if you need to run Windows 10 in a virtual environment, Windows 10 does include extended security update benefits for Windows 10 Azure VMs. So if you need to extend Windows 10 capability, this is an option to continue to run Windows 10. If you need to be able to have that and don't want to pay for extended security updates, this is an option. The other thing is AVD allows you to integrate with other Azure services. So, your Azure files and things like that, Azure print services, those capabilities become available when you start looking at doing AVD as well. A couple considerations from Azure Virtual Desktops. Again, as we mentioned, IT management and configuration, there's a lot more involvement here, even more so than the Windows 365 Enterprise PC. So as you start walking up the scale, Windows Business 365 is probably your least IT involved option for cloud desktops. Enterprise 365 is going to be your next, ratcheting up that IT involvement. AVD is definitely going to be the top of that scale in terms of the IT involvement needed to deploy, manage, and configure that environment on an ongoing basis. One of the other considerations here is that your apps and data really need to reside inside of Azure. That's not untrue for cloud PCs as well. If you're trying to access legacy applications that have, thick client installed to app data backends, unless you've moved the rest of your apps and data into Azure, AVD and or cloud-based PCs may not be an option. And we'll talk about some of the other options there and alternatives here in just a minute in regards to those, but keep that in mind as well. And then there's, again, in most cases for AVD, we're generally deploying third-party tools to help simplify deployment and management in those environments. And then note, regardless of the solution for Windows Cloud PC or Windows Business or Enterprise or Windows 365 Enterprise or Business, sorry, or Cloud PC or AVD, you're going to need some sort of an endpoint client still device that's going to connect in. So this is where the options come into, a thin client option where we basically repurpose that existing x86 hardware with a purpose-built OS that basically just provides basically a connectivity point, right? It authenticates, they log in, and they get their desktop. So those are all options when we consider when we're doing this transition as well. So again, if we look outside the Microsoft stack, what are the other EUC delivery options? If you're looking at a hardware refresh, you're going to have to make an invest in hardware to replace Windows 10 endpoint devices. Now is a good time to consider, do I want to still be inside of managing discrete endpoints across all my users, or do I want to consolidate them into more of a centralized management perspective with EUC delivering Windows 10 or a multi-session desktop-like environment? And so from that perspective, obviously the predominant leader there is going to be Citrix. From that aspect, providing the capability both for on-prem or even in any of the clouds, whether it be Azure, AWS, or GCP, to broker connectivity to Windows 10, Windows 11, or even potentially server-based multi-session desktops that look and feel like Windows 10 and Windows 11. So that's one of the options. We've talked about Windows 365 and AVD. These are, obviously EUC solutions. They are tied to Microsoft and Azure specifically. The next one kind of on the list is kind of an up and comer that has found some real focus recently with the transitions and the big players in the industry has been Parallels RAS, where they provide a capability to broker both either in an Azure or an on-prem environment. And again, provide desktops or server-based and or application delivery options. So again, depending on what you're looking at, if it makes sense. And then obviously Omnissa is the one that if you're still a VMware shop, that's still potentially an option. And then we believe they're going to be working on some other hypervisor integrations going forward. This is the old Horizon View is what Omnissa has been renamed to for those of you who aren't familiar with that. So these are all potential alternatives or options to consider as well when you're looking at what does that refresh strategy look like? Do I want to consolidate back in the data center, have better control over apps and data, especially from a security and compliance perspective? And then again, maybe deploy out some less expensive, maybe purpose-built thin client devices to those end users to broker connectivity into the environment as an option. So, all right. So let's kind of bring this all together. What do you need to be aware of and what do you need to be doing since you've taken the time to grace us with your presence today and find out more about the Windows 10 end of life? So what's your call to action? So first and foremost, this is that URL again. I highly recommend going out there and pulling down this tool and running this in your environment, as you are definitely going to need to begin that evaluation process on your device, especially depending on how many devices you have, right? And again, the best approach I can tell you here is to identify the types of models and hardware that you have, and they pull a subset of those to determine capabilities to go forward to Windows 11. So you have an idea if you can go update to Windows 11, if that's what you want to do. And then if you're going to do that, what devices don't, so you can put a strategy around those as well. Obviously, device strategy. So in-place upgrade, like I said, if the devices meet the requirements for Windows 10 to upgrade to Windows 11, that is absolutely an option. Again, you do have the caveats that it's an in-place upgrade. It's going to bring some garbage along with it. It's been relatively okay in the industry, but again, Microsoft's not good about clean up after itself, so you're going to have some stuff get drug along. So if you do have devices that have smaller hard drives, things like that, it's maybe where the hard drive requirements for the new versions and those legacy stuff will may become a problem. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Obviously, the hardware refresh obviously is an option. Again, options there, then maybe you're looking at taking advantage of the Intune and some of those capabilities that are there, and most likely potentially shelfware today that you're not really taking advantage of from your existing L65 entitlements. Cloud PCs, again, the Windows 65 enterprise or business options, or an EUC strategy are all things you can take a look at in determining what that strategy looks like moving forward. Whatever you decide to do, we highly recommend you get a pilot process going now to work through and confirm that whatever solution or strategy you're looking at to make sure it's going to work as you expect, determine any application nuances with your applications, and then determine what that process is going to look like and begin that rollout. So you've got plenty of time to roll out to all of your end users and also then obviously educate and train them on the new Windows 11 environment they're going to be consuming once you get to that point. And then again, I would definitely plan a schedule full deployment and work backwards, right? So your deadline is 10/14/2025 without incurring additional costs. So with that, determine hardware procurement, your implementation, and in-user rollout and training, and to figure when you need to have a decision made and be pulling those triggers. So that date's going to come faster than we would like, one way or the other, but it is here and it is coming. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. So with that, again, we welcome you to please reach out if you have any additional questions about your specific environment. We'd like to have a conversation. We'd love to hop on a call and have a hour discussion to kind of walk through that, discuss it, see where you're at, and how we may be able to provide some assistance there.